So I'm here to show off my idle game, my video game I've been working on a little bit lately. So I'm going to run through these slides real quick, and then we'll get to the actual demo. But the first thing we got to talk about is what is an idle game. So idle game or an incremental game or a clicker, they're all kind of the same thing. There's subtle differences between those, but they're basically like a simple game that doesn't require usually constant input or action from the user. And oftentimes it requires like waiting a little bit for a reward for your actions, which then kind of allow you to do more stuff, which then you wait a little bit and you get, and it kind of compounds. It's like a gameplay loop of doing some actions, maybe some strategy, maybe who knows, waiting a little bit and then getting feedback. So they're really addicting. I like these kind of games because they're simple and you can kind of multitask and kind of play them when you're watching a TV show or if you're in a boring meeting or something. A lot of times they're kind of like pay to win garbage games, but even those are kind of fun. But a lot of the good ones are not pay to win, and I don't know, I think they're cool. So this is kind of what I was talking about. This is kind of the gameplay loop where the user performs an action, then they wait for a little bit for whatever's happening, and then they get a reward, which allows them to perform a bigger action or a better action, which gives them more rewards, which then allows them to keep going. So some examples are in the game Cookie Clicker, which is like a really popular clicker idle game. You start off by baking cookies by clicking a cookie, and eventually you redeem your cookies for things that click for you, and eventually you redeem more cookies for teams of grandmas which bake cookies for you, and it keeps going from there. Or another example is the game Soda Dungeon, which is one of my favorites, and it's kind of similar to the game I've been working on. You hire caffeinated soda junkies to go fight monsters for you to bring back loot. And you start off with arming them with like broken bottles and bar stools, and eventually they bring back like real armor and weapons and stuff, and then it keeps compounding. They can fight bigger monsters and stuff like that. So my game that I've been working on is called Guild Simulator. I kind of named it after the fad of naming games like Blank Simulator, which was popular like 7 or 8 years ago, but now I'm finally catching up. And in the game, you're in charge of a guild of like fantasy RPG characters, and your job is to like organize them into parties and send them out to raid dungeons. So they go and fight monsters in the dungeons, and then they bring back loot and they level up, which allows you to get more characters in your guild, which allows you to raid bigger dungeons. And that's kind of the gameplay loop to fit into like the idle gameplay loop that we were talking about. So the general idea is you form your party of heroes, they're called in the game. You send them out, so they travel to the dungeon, they battle the enemies, and then if they're successful, they return. So they have a return trip, and then they level up, and you get all the rewards and gold and all that stuff, and then you keep going. And one of the things I really wanted to do from some of the games I was inspired by is implement multiplayer, because there's not a lot of really good multiplayer idle games, and the ones that are good are usually like pay to win and kind of not very fun. So that was one of my goals. So with that in mind, this is the architecture, which I figured I should cover real quick since we do software here. So it's a client server architecture. The front end is in Unity. I have some experience with Unity. I always like to get more though, so I chose that. I don't, with this project, I'm not leveraging a ton of what Unity can do because it's a lot of like UI based stuff. But I don't know, it turned out really good and I learned a lot. It's worth noting that I only had been working on the back end up until the day that Pitlick gave his impassioned speech in front of the American flag or whatever it was. And then I decided, I can throw together a front end in a month and demo it off. So there you go. As far as the back end goes, though, it's consisting of a MySQL database and then a Flask Python API that sits in front of that. So not quite a REST API. It's really HTTP. It's not really REST, but that's what's the API that the client talks to get to the data. And then there's also like a service that's always running against the database where a lot of the game logic happens. That's also written in Python. So the client is kind of like a dumb client where it really just kind of sends off requests and then gets data back. A lot of the logic happens on the back end. So things to keep in mind before I show off the game. I'm not a UI or user experience designer, so my UIs are functional, but they might not be super beautiful, or maybe even flow very well, but they're there. And I'm also not a graphic artist. So actually all of the assets in the game are like either free assets that people make available online, or even like some paid assets that are like, hey, you can use these to prototype your game or even in a commercial game, all the way down to the font. I even got the font from like itch.io, I think, which I don't really actually love the font that much. It kind of looks cool, but it's not very readable. But let's get into it. So let me close out of this. All right, so hopefully you guys can see. I switched desktops here. So here's the game. I'm gonna log in, hopefully with the correct user here. And so if I were to release this game, I would probably have an interactive tutorial that would like walk the user through like their first few actions and stuff. I don't have that yet, so I'm gonna walk you guys through it. So this is a fresh guild, a fresh user account, brand new. So we can look at our list of characters, our list of heroes. We have one because we're just starting out. So here they are. These names are actually randomly generated from a list that I don't even remember where I got it. I'm not even sure how to say this name, but this is our first character. You can see on the right here, they have some stats that kind of indicate how strong they are, how effective they'll be in battle. And then on the left here, they have some more stats like experience, how close they are to leveling up. There's actually this leadership level, which is a mechanic in the game that dictates how many other characters your character can take with them to a dungeon. So if you're leadership level 1, you can only take one character with you, which is yourself. So you can only have a party of 1. So that's going to be fine for starting out. There's some buttons near here on the bottom. These aren't implemented yet. Ignore those. But that's our character view. We also have a view of our actual guild here. So just like your characters, your guild levels up. And when your guild levels up, you get rewards. So our next reward is going to be at level 2, which is the next level. And we'll actually get a new character from that. And we can go ahead and name our guild, Coaches Cool Guild, because I'm not creative with names. And then we just have like a created timestamp and all that stuff. So let's get into it. So we can go on a new raid. So these are just kind of some dungeons that I put together that just for the demo purposes. So each dungeon has a required level that your heroes have to be in order to go there. So we just have to do the basic one because we just have a brand new character. So we're just going to send them down to the guild basement because they probably can't handle actually going out to a real dungeon. So maybe they can find something to fight in the basement. So we'll select that as the dungeon we want to send them to. Then we need to select a party leader. So like I said, this is where that like leadership level comes into play. We only have one selection anyway, so we'll select our one hero. So now we're forming our party. So this is normally where you would select any other heroes you would want to go with you, or maybe even have other people join your party to go on the dungeon, with you, but we actually can't because we're at capacity with this particular character. So we just embark here. There we go. So our character is traveling to the dungeon. They'll get there in 10 seconds because it doesn't take long. They're just going down the stairs. And then they'll start battling monsters, hopefully in a second here. So now they're in the battle. So now that they're battling, we can actually peek in on what's going on. So it looks like they found a couple slimes that they're going to battle in the basement. So good thing we sent them down there. And this is kind of like the waiting period of the gameplay loop, right? So this is a simple dungeon. So this one's only going to take like 20 seconds for a single battle. Each dungeon consists of a handful of battles and then they return. So this is kind of like your basic one to get you started. So then see, they moved on to the second battle of the dungeon now. So they're fighting this terrifying ghost here. And then in 5 seconds, they'll be done with that. So we can kind of go out and get back out of this view. This is like your main view where you'd see if you had like a ton of battles going on and they made it. So they'll be back in 5 seconds. And we already have one notification here. So it looks like our character leveled up from that second battle. So great news, they're level 2 now. If we go back, so the raid is complete. Our heroes didn't die, so great. We actually have some more notifications now. So they were able to bring back 5 gold with them. They actually leveled up their leadership level to level 2. So now they could take another character with them next time they went out. Our guild actually leveled up to level 2. And because of that, we actually got a new character. So if we go kind of back to our hero view, now we have 2 characters. So we have our first one here still. And they actually have a couple points they can spend. So you can kind of level up their stat points. Then we have this second character here. So now next time we go out, we could either bring this character with us or send them out on their own or something like that. And we can even, I didn't even show this off earlier, you can change their class to a different character. So now, and the other thing I was going to show, after the battles are complete, you actually have a detailed view. So you can use this to see like everything that happened in the battle, how much damage your characters did, how much damage they received. And this will become more important after I get more features in later to kind of fine tune like, oh, they need more stat points in this stat or they need to do something else. And you can kind of click through here. You can click between the battles and all that stuff. So now that we have 2 characters, we leveled 1 up. We have some more options that are available to us. We could go to the second dungeon here. We could do this first dungeon again with 2 characters. But what I want to actually show off is some of the multiplayer because I think it's pretty cool. So if I pop up, I have a couple other user accounts here. that are logged in. So this guild here actually has a character that's a lot stronger and has a leadership level of 4. So you can take a bunch of people with him on a dungeon raid. So we're going to go ahead and do a new raid on this account. We're going to select the second dungeon here this time. We're going to select our more leveled up character here. So now we have some more options when we're forming the party. We have a few plus signs here, so we can go ahead and like add another character from this guild into the party. And we also have this randomly generated 4 character key that we can send to other players. So like, for instance, if this was another player over here, we could tell them, oh, I want to join a multiplayer party. So you can paste that key in and you get to pick, you know, who do I want to send on that party? So I can pick this character. And now we go back here to the original party formation. Now we have 3 characters, this little indicator here to denote, oh, they're on from a different account. And we can even go back to our original account that we had and join from here and send this character in. And there you go. So now if we go back to the party leader's account, we can embark. And now we got a bigger raid going on a better dungeon. So there's your compounding rewards that you get. And then you can see that from all the different user accounts. And that's, I think, pretty much it. I don't probably have a ton of time, but any questions, comments?
There are 4 minutes. You have 4 minutes left.
Okay, that was a good comment.
Okay, this is awesome. So
This is super awesome.
You threw this together? Is that what you said? What is this going to look like when it's polished?
So I had a lot of work on the back end done back when you gave your political speech a month ago. And I like I said, I do have some experience in Unity. I start and stop games all the time. I've probably started and stopped like 5 games in the past year. I can remember Nick Jones coming up to me in the office one time and I was working on, that was like 5 games ago that I was working on.
I was going to ask if this was that game.
No, this is totally different. So when you said that, I was like, I can just, you know, I know how to put together a front end for, and this is like kind of more in my wheelhouse than like a more complex game, I guess, because this is like a lot of the complexity in this game is like sending an HTTP request, which I didn't know how to do that. I mean, most people probably here know how to do that. So yeah, I mean, I didn't even have the Git like project built when you gave your speech, but I think that night I went and started it.
I claim partial credit.
That's fine. I'll give you a shout out in the credits if this ever gets released.
I got a question for you, Coach.
Sure.
What if you keep working on this, if you don't abandon it like your other project you said,
Yeah.
What's the next feature that you want? Like, what do you not have done that you want to do next?
So there's several features that are kind of either half baked in the back end or even fully implemented in the back end that just aren't represented in the front end. This inventory button that I didn't talk about at all in the front end doesn't do anything because I haven't done it in the front end yet, but there is actually a whole inventory and equipment system that works in the back end that I just haven't implemented in the front end. So that would be like some like easy next steps, like this equipment view for your individual characters. That doesn't work yet, but it, like I said, it works on the back end. So that would be a next target. The skills thing is the same. There's the skills like logic works on the back end, but there's not data to support it, and there's not a front end view for it. So stuff like that. But another thing I need to do is like all of this is fueled off this MySQL database, like including like what dungeons are available, like what's in each dungeon. So I really need like kind of a content editor for that. So I might make that as a whole separate app that I can say, okay, load up my data and I want to make a new dungeon and it's got this sprite associated with it and it's got these encounters and stuff. So that would be really helpful because right now I just have a big SQL file of stuff that I have to manually edit the requests. And if I want to retest, I like clear out the databases and rerun that SQL file to generate all the data again. So there's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Any other last minute quick questions before I keep going here?
Not a question again, but based on the chat in here, when you're ready for beta testers, I think you've got a whole guild worth of people.
Great, that's awesome. Yeah.
So for your backend language in Unity, did you go with C# or did you go with JavaScript? Just curious.
I actually don't even know if they offer JavaScript anymore, but I did C#.
Okay.
I know they used to do JavaScript because I remember when I first started learning Unity, that was like an option, but I don't hardly see it anymore. But I did C
Oh,
Sharp.
I
I actually
see.
really like C Sharp,
Cool.
and it's pretty fast too. So
Yay, C Sharp.
agreed.